Why are we ignoring the elephant in the room, which is the cover-up, the fraud, the corruption at the CDC? How can we go on as a country and listen to the CDC give health advice for our children if we're just going to cover up the fraud? It doesn't take much to debunk a lie. Often psychopaths will hide it in plain sight, which I think is part of their thrill of getting away with it. But sometimes a little bit of research, elbow grease, hard work, determination, and a fearless willingness to see things for what they really are will get it done. Also known as bringing the receipts, accountability is what our world needs right now more than anything. Even when we have accountability, sometimes the truth is not enough. Nefarious forces that are invested in the lie, typically demonic, will try to stop the truth from coming out. Because whenever you question the system, whenever you speak out, those who are invested in the lie will strike. Typical tactics that are used to stop the truth from coming out are gaslighting, ad hominem attacks, which you may recall if you watched last week. Ad hominem just means I don't have anything to contribute to the argument, so I'm just going to attack my opponent personally. Blackmail, especially by bad actors when the stakes are very high. Extortion, lawfare, which is just trying to bankrupt somebody through the legal system, and murder. The beauty of the era that we're living in now is that these behaviors are becoming more and more obvious. Also known as over the target, when a truth teller lands on exposing a lie, these are the visible tactics that are used to try to stop them. And you can take a look most recently at what's happened to Candace Owens regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination. The reaction of Erica Kirk and TPUSA to Candace asking obvious questions about holes in this patsy investigation implicates them even more. After the 1986 Act gave vaccine makers a complete blank check from any liability and any accountability for their vaccine products, more and more vaccines, of course, were added to the schedule. I mean, why not? They have no liability. Autism rates skyrocketed in parallel with the number of vaccines that were added until now we're up to 73 doses by the age of 18. And despite mothers' accounts of the light dying in their children's eyes after vaccinations, they weren't believed. They were gaslit in many cases by their own doctors. And the hero of this story, of course, is RFK Jr., a hero of mine and a man who, prior to his appointment as Secretary of HHS, had written extensively about the fraud, the corruption, the junk science, and the collusion. He's the loudest, most esteemed voice attempting to hold the system accountable. So on September 22nd of last year, when the NIH announced its Autism Data Science Initiative, it's a program awarding $50 million for 13 grants to, quote, unlock causes and improve outcomes relative to autism, Maha cheered. Yay, great, this is great. We're finally going to get to the root. And if you read from the press release that was issued by the NIH last September, you will see that indeed more than $50 million in awards that support 13 pioneering projects that draw on genomic, epigenomic, metabolomic, proteomic, clinical behavior, and autism services data. But is this it? Are we finally going to get to the root cause of autism? We all know that the elephant in the room is vaccines, and it's been vaccines for decades. They've been at the top of the suspect list for so long while we've watched our children go from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 31 diagnosed with autism. So all these big fancy words, are we going to finally get to the truth? Well, hold your horses, because if you keep reading the announcement from the NIH website, by paragraph 3, you're going to see another fancy word called exposomics. A key feature of ADSI is the use of exposomics. This is directly from the NIH press release. Exposomics is the comprehensive study of environmental, medical, and lifestyle factors in combination with genetics and biology. Projects for this $50 million assignment will investigate a wide range of influences, including environmental contaminants such as pesticides and air pollutants, maternal nutrition and diet, perinatal complications, psychosocial stress, and immune responses during pregnancy and early development. Now, I first heard this word just the other day when I heard Mr. Kennedy use it in the Oval Office. I actually at first thought he said exosomes, which is not the same thing as exposomics. So I looked up the definition, and the definition in the dictionary actually says that exposomics is the study of how environmental exposures throughout a person's life affect their health. Okay. Environmental exposures. It considers various factors, including chemicals, pollution, and lifestyle, to understand their cumulative impact on disease risk and health outcomes. Okay, by paragraph 4, I'm starting to get a little bit concerned because it's starting to feel like we may be getting set up for a whitewash. Are we rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic? It feels a little bit like, well, we know everyone has suspected vaccines for years. The issue has divided families, deprived children from school, and caused great concern amongst parents who watch their children have chronic conditions like autism, asthma, earaches, eczema, and more. We already know from the vaxxed-unvaxxed study done by Dartmouth-educated physician Dr. Paul Thomas and the esteemed Dr. Brian Hooker that vaxxed kids have a 300x increased risk for asthma. We already know that. But we at the HHS are going to take a look at Tylenol, genetics, pollutants, lifestyle, practically everything except vaccines. In fact, would it surprise you to learn that none of the 13 grants awarded by the NIH ever mention the word vaccines? Even though the headline specifically says the $50 million in grant money is going to be used to unlock causes of autism. Causes. Nowhere in the described studies being conducted do they even mention the word vaccines. The closest they come to is environmental factors and heavy metals. Okay, environmental factors. So are we code switching here? I mean, I always thought environmental factors meant water, food, air, lead paint. Is that what these recipients mean? They're getting grants so they can study environmental factors? Or are they including intentionally injecting heavy metals and other toxins into the bloodstream as infants as environmental? Are they even going to look at the heavy metals in vaccines? Or are they just using the term heavy metals to mean maybe lead, like lead paint? Is that what they're doing? Is that why we don't even see the V word in any of their described proposals? The worst part about all of this is that vaccines causing autism is the worst kept secret in Washington. We've known for almost 30 years that vaccines can cause autism because the CDC did the study in the late 90s and found a huge link, and they covered it up. They lied, they committed fraud, and they covered it up. That means that every child who has regressed into autism since the late 1990s is the victim of a fraud perpetuated by our U.S. government. If you want to learn the details about that cover-up, of course, you can watch the movie Vaxxed, because you can't censor film. You can actually learn about William Thompson, the CDC whistleblower, and how for 10 years, Dr. Brian Hooker cultivated a relationship with Dr. Thompson. We have absolute proof that they covered it up. They knew, the CDC knew, there was a 7.6x increased risk for autism in the vaccinated. And they decided that shocking number, it's a very shocking number, to hide, bury, destroy, and keep that information secret from the public. The worst part of all of this is that our hero, Mr. Kennedy, he already knows this. So why are we playing this kabuki theater? Like, oh, we don't know. Is it Tylenol? Is it glyphosate? The age of the mother? The lifestyle of the mother? Did she have a tuna sandwich while she was pregnant and somehow got too much mercury? And, is it genetics? Why? Why are we ignoring the elephant in the room, which is the cover-up, the fraud, the corruption at the CDC? Why aren't we calling them out? President Trump has gone to great lengths and is going to great lengths to expose the fraud and corruption of the 2020 election. He said very clearly, we cannot go on as a country if we have corrupt elections and we don't hold people accountable. Well, how can we go on as a country and listen to the CDC give health advice for our children if we're just going to cover up the fraud, if we're not going to hold them accountable for the fraud? This should be very alarming to the MAHA movement. Like all good psyops and mysteries, however, there's also a twist. There is one study. It's a somewhat secret study simply because the bot media hasn't really explored it or done much to cover or report about it. And that is a study that is taking place at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. The CDC awarded this contract to Rensselaer also last year to do the vaccines and autism study. Oh, wow. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So despite the 2 grants that were given to University of North Carolina for $4 million each, we're going to give $353,000 something to Rensselaer, and we're going to have them finally look into the vaccine autism connection. Okay, we'll take it. A win's a win. Fortunately, however, if you look at the announcement, which you can find on Reuters, was released, one of the reasons that Rensselaer was awarded the contract is due to its, quote, unique ability to link children to maternal cohorts using proprietary databases and de-identified data sets, enabling advanced statistical analyses within the project's timeframe. However, it's not unique to Rensselaer. It's not unique at all. The Vaccine Safety Database, which houses health outcomes for 21 million children, it is government data that it has outsourced to be managed by Kaiser. Don't know why we can't manage our own data at CDC. Maybe they're distancing themselves from this data. I don't know. But we already have this unique ability that the CDC is claiming Rensselaer has, and that's why they received this contract. So once again, digging deeper into the press release, by highlighting maternal cohorts in the announcement, they're indicating that this study will be looking at the mother's behavior and experiences linking to autism. That is very disturbing because once again, we are potentially being set up for the mother to be the cause. And once again, we are looking at completely gaslighting the vaccine autism connection. Where is the study for comparing health outcomes for vaxxed versus unvaxxed relative to the autism diagnosis? If we had access to the vaccine safety database, if Secretary Kennedy would release that data to the public and we could have outsourced studies, because really a study of this data is nothing more than just running a report. We could have the answer to the vaxxed versus unvaxxed autism diagnosis in 5 hours. It would take 1 afternoon. We don't need to do other studies. We already have the answer to that question. We had the answer in 2000. We had the answer in the late 1990s when the study was first run. And we could run that data again and get the answer today. And yet, we're being set up to consider multiple causes. We have to look at all these factors. We have to dilute the real threat that parents have known about and been concerned about for decades. while the CDC also already knew it's going to take 1 to 2 years for these studies to complete. We aren't going to know. Are we going to know if Rensselaer, is really going to play fair? Are they going to play fair ball here? Are they actually going to call out the fraud and identify that their data is consistent with the information that the CDC knew in the late 1990s and early 2000s? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But the fraud is not being called out, and we have reason to be concerned, just based on that fact alone. If Mr. Kennedy leaves his post at HHS and the answer to this question is still buried and the fraud hasn't been called out, the sad reality is that it will be baked in forever. So stay tuned. We're just getting started.